On this episode of Infinity Sports, we're going to be talking about comments made by an NCAA basketball player and our feelings about those comments and about the intention behind them. That coming up right after the intro. Welcome to Infinity Sports, everybody. I'm Wayne G. I'm joined, as always, by Sully. What's up?
Hey.
Exciting topic today.
Yeah, I know you're extremely fired up and really ready to get into this one. I know the topics that bridge politics and sports together, I think, are your favorite topics to talk about, if I'm being honest. So
probably, because when I don't do this show, I do a lot of political arguing.
Yeah, and I know it bleeds your two favorite things, arguing and, sports. So, I mean, that's just what else can you get, right?
Well, before we jump right into it, I do want to say, if you are watching on the show, please like and subscribe. It's right at the button. It's a watermark on the video itself. You can click on that, or you can actually click the subscribe button that's a little bit further below that. Helps the show out tremendously. The more subscribers we get, obviously, the better we do and the better content we can bring you. Also, it puts you in line first for the new content when it comes out because you get notified about it. If you prefer to listen to the show instead of watch it, that's cool. A lot of people do. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music. And we do encourage you to reach out to us on social media, ask us questions, tell us what you think of the show. You can find us on Facebook at Infinity Sports Podcast, on Instagram at Infinity Sports Podcast, and on Twitter at Sports Infinity 5. So this topic came up because we were searching for topics. I'm not going to lie to the audience here. We didn't know what we were going to talk about.
It's been a rough week in sports, guys. Not a lot's happened. Well, I'd say a rough 2 days.
So we're trying to think of some ideas, and I just started scrolling news, like, for whatever reason. Just not sports news even, just regular news. And this topic came up, and there's a Rutgers basketball player, and, of course, of all the things I wrote down, I didn't write down his name.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but that's fine. I'll have a screenshot by the time this airs, and you'll see him, and you'll have his name and his Twitter feed and all that. So he basically went to a March Madness site. The name of the Instagram account is March Madness, all one word, and it's actually an NCAA-run Instagram account.
Geo Baker.
Geo Baker, there you go. And he had, on this account, they had a picture of Baylor coach Scott Drew, and it said basically, guys are breaking up with their longtime girlfriends to keep the bubble tight and play games. And I think, they are. I mean, it's like the NBA bubble. You can't have people in there, and they're trying to be as safe as possible. Now, he comments directly underneath it. It says, and we're still amateurs, with a laughing face emoji, which then kind of there's like a little discussion underneath his comment because he's a blue checkmark guy. So, he comments, and then a bunch of people who aren't blue checkmark people just start giving their 2 cents. And his deleted tweet, which he got into an argument with somebody, he said, that's nothing compared to what we bring to our schools. Not even saying schools should pay players, which already happens anyway, but others can create their own business and make money off it. So why would an athlete not be allowed to do that? I have to sign a paper that says my name and likeness belongs to the school. Modern day slavery. And that got a lot of attention.
I'm sure it did. Anytime you drop the S-bomb, you're asking for a lot of just attention, I think, at that point. And I mean, is he wrong?
I don't think he's wrong.
So. Nope.
No.
I don't think either of us think he's wrong.
And even in his apology, before we get to his apology, he'd also gotten into an argument with somebody where he had commented something to the effect of, you realize we are playing in a pandemic, being told to stay away from everyone we love just for your all entertainment. But I can't sell my own jersey with my last name on it to help myself financially. That makes sense to you? And again, we're going to go over some examples because obviously the NCAA has overreached a number of times, in my opinion, aside from their ridiculous rules. But he did apologize today, came out with a comment that basically said, I'm extremely grateful for Rutgers. I'm extremely grateful for the coach and whatnot. And he basically said, you see people with academic scholarships. They don't have that problem. We worked extremely hard for our scholarships. I have been working out for 3 hours a day since 6th grade. I feel like everyone on our team earned our scholarships, but we also earned our own name as well. That's just marketing opportunities for us that we deserve. Like I said, I'm disappointed in the word choice that I made, but I also feel like it's a discussion that needs to be made. And so I like that he didn't flat out just say, I'm sorry for what I said. He said, listen, I'm sorry for the choice of words, but I meant every word of what I said.
I actually think this young man has handled this in honestly the best way possible. He was reactionary with his tweet, where he came out and dropped the slavery bomb, but then was very coordinated in his apologies, like you mentioned. They made sense and made sure to reiterate his point, almost saying, hey, look, like, the whole point is I can't make money off of my likeness. I'm being told exactly how to live, where to live, when to live, and I see no benefit in return from it other than going to school, which, let's be real, like a lot of these guys, that's a great return and all, but for the most part, the NCAA we know is winning this transaction. Like, they make billions of dollars, and these young kids don't see any of that.
Well, that's really where I wanted to go with that. I had written down some statistics because we all know that I love numbers. And so I wrote down a bunch of stuff. And for starters, let's just bring up the fact that the NCAA makes over $1 billion a year on collegiate athletics. Now, when I say it makes over $1 billion, I want people to understand something. The NCAA does not give out a single scholarship. The NCAA does not give out a single grant or tuition. The NCAA is a private, for-profit entity that makes its money overseeing the institutions who then make additional money on top of the athletics. So I think people need to understand the NCAA, they think of the NCAA as like a pool of like all the college's money. No, they're a private institution that sells TV rights and sells these kids for money.
I truthfully don't know how the NCAA is still kind of an organization and how a lot of these teams just kind of haven't decided they can run themselves, essentially. You know what I mean? Like Texas has their own football rights. You know what I mean? Notre Dame has their own football rights. You got to stop. And I get the NCAA, is the overseeing committee and things like that, but you're telling me that like they can't figure this out themselves and they need this third party company that, like you said, literally takes a slice of the pie. I don't understand it. I truly don't. I don't know the sweet talking that went into this, but man, the guy who invented the NCAA and such like that is a genius.
I understand that it was a governing body that when it was originated, it was a necessity because you had all these colleges. You couldn't have each college having its own individual rules. So if you're a kid and you go to this school, you can't do this, but you can if you go to this school, you can't. There's got to be kind of a set guideline for all student athletes. So it was kind of a necessity, but its power has become exponentially greater than it was ever supposed to be. And I think at this point, the NCAA is supposed to be working for the universities, kind of like our senators and governors when are supposed to be working for us, but they really aren't. They're working for themselves. And the NCAA is working for itself at this point. Now, it does protect those schools in the sense that the NCAA makes these rules that the schools are like, all right, we're not the bad guy. It's the NCAA doing it.
Yes, but I mean, that's because it is the NCAA doing it. I understand.
But they're complicit.
They are complicit. They are 100% complicit, but it's because they're it's a symbiotic relationship. You know what I mean? Like they make plenty of money off of these kids too, and at least they offer said scholarships and offer the education. But nonetheless, like I think the schools love the NCAA.
Well, they do. And that's what I was saying, is that the NCAA, the reason the schools won't ever rebel against the NCAA, I don't say ever, because again, I never say never or ever, but is because the NCAA does represent their interests by creating stupid rules and things like this. Now, when they come down on a university, obviously the university doesn't like him at that time. I think of Roger Goodell and the Patriots. Roger Goodell does a lot for every owner in the NFL, including Robert Kraft. So when he comes down on the Patriots, yes, Robert Kraft is unhappy with the decision, but he's got to eat it because at the end of the day, Goodell makes them an extra 10, 25, $50 million per team.
Do you liken Roger Goodell to an NCAA, or do you think, how would you compare the situations of because I'm sure the NCAA is trying to follow said model, and instead of having a commissioner, they have a governing body. What do you feel?
I feel like the NCAA is a more powerful Roger Goodell.
Which is insanely hard to believe because Roger Goodell's, arguably the most powerful man on the planet.
Because he's in charge of the most popular sport.
Most popular sport, yeah. I actually agree, and I think that I think kind of abuse their power in a way too that Roger Goodell does not. Now I know Roger Goodell is known for abusing his power, but not like the NCAA is. The NCAA makes some of the weirdest and stupidest decisions on these punishments I've ever seen. So
they're insane. And I wanted to bring up 3 punishments in general that I personally have always had a problem with, and anytime I get a chance to bring them up, I do.
If you've watched the show, you know these
you should know these 3. The third one maybe you aren't as familiar with, but the first one is Mike Williams, the wide receiver from USC, who, if people remember correctly, that Maurice Clarett challenged the NFL rule on the age limit and having to spend 3 years from your graduating class. Now, that's an NFL rule. It's not an NCAA rule, so he was suing the NFL, and he won. If people remember correctly, he won, and the court said the NFL has to let players in that are 18 years old. And then Mike Williams declared for the NFL draft. He had just finished his sophomore year at USC, big 6'6" receiver, fast, big hands. And
it was shattering records at USC.
Yeah, just destroying it.
His freshman and sophomore seasons were some of the best ever.
And then an appellate court overruled the Maurice Clarett thing, and it went back to the NFL. Can do what they want because the NFL is a private entity, and they can set the rules for their employment as they see fit. And so then the rule got overturned. Mike Williams said, all right, well, I guess I'll go back to college then since I can't go to the NFL. And the NCAA said, sorry. You need to just sit out a year because we're not going to let you play in college anymore. You declared for the draft.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right.
And sitting out a year proved to hurt Mike Williams quite a bit.
He was still, I think, the 3rd overall pick.
No, he was, but I think it hurt him personally. He was a kid that I think needed to stay in shape. He got out of shape, out of the football mind, things like that. I think it hurt. It didn't hurt him financially or in the draft. I think it hurt him personally, kind of thing, because he never turned out to be a great football player. Right. And I think part of that was the year off and just getting out of that mindset of football every day, kind of thing.
And what bothered me about it is I understand if you have a rule that when the players declare for the draft, they can't go back to school, fine. But the fact that he declared for the draft when that rule was overturned, and then when they flipped it back, he said, okay, I'll go back to school. I didn't take any money or anything. So they're like, no, sorry.
He hired an agent.
He did hire an agent.
He did hire an agent. And that's where it cuts off. The second you hire an agent in any amateur sport, you're no longer considered an amateur, and the NCAA will not let you back. However, you would think that a group of thoughtful men, and I say men because I'm assuming there was no women at this time. It was 2002 or 3 or whatever year it was. 6, actually. This group of men couldn't sit and be like, you know what? Maybe we should let one slide here because the rule changed and this poor kid, got stuck in the middle. But no, the NCAA is so ridiculous and so dug in on their shit that they won't even compromise to any rational thought.
Right. Well, and because the NCAA, I believe, also sets guidelines on when you can declare for the draft. And that's why Mike Williams declared, is because if he said, hey, I want to wait and see how this Maurice Clarett thing plays out, and the trial gets to a certain point, he won't be eligible for the draft. He had to declare.
Yes, he did.
So it's just a crappy situation. And then my second one, this one is my all-time favorite, is Terrell Pryor at Ohio State, winning the Big Ten championship. And, of course, the NCAA doesn't give these kids anything at all to go to school there. They give them nothing. And so the kid decides, I want to get some tattoos. Now, again, whatever. You're 18 years old at that point. You're legally allowed to get tattoos. Go get tattoos. I'm not opposed to those. But he doesn't have any money to pay for them. So what the guy at the tattoo parlor says, why don't you give me your Big Ten championship ring? And basically, I'll give you unlimited credit at the tattoo parlor. You can get whatever you want. And that's what he does. And again, this is a ring that is his. It belongs to him. It's not university property. They gave it to him as a gift. And then he exchanged it for tattoos. And he got suspended, potentially kicked out of school at that point because he declared for the supplemental draft. But that was the end of his career because he gave away some of his personal property. I mean, where does it end? Because it was an NCAA. I mean, what if he gave away a video game for some money? Like where does it end?
Exactly. At that point, I mean, again, it's exactly that. Like, what part of his personal property is considered like legally his to give away? You know what I mean? Like if he'd have given away a toothbrush, like you know what I mean? Like because he's a celebrity and anything is worth money. So you know. It wasn't like signed at an NCAA event. It wasn't like anything. It was just his ring that he gave away. Again, you're going to list all these, and I'm not going to have any explanation for the NCAA. So.
Well, and the third one, and this is the most recent, so people may be really familiar with it, is Johnny Manziel. After his sophomore season or freshman season, whatever it was, he had a good year. He gets paid to go out to Vegas, $50,000 to sign some autographs for some guys. And again, he's not giving away anything. So he's just going to give away a signature. And they said, hey, for 2 hours, we'll give you $50,000. Just sign some stuff. Now, eventually, I think he said, I gave it back or I didn't take the money, whatever it was. I doubt it. I'm sure he got the $50,000 and he should have.
$50K. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the NCAA really went light on him, too, because he was a face of the franchise or face of NCAA football at the time. And so they suspended him for the first quarter of the first game of the season against like Buffalo State or something. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, it's his. You can't even sell your signature. Like, this is your – you know who owns the signature, and this is where the slavery thing I don't even think is that big of a hyperbole, is that the NCAA owns your signature. The NCAA can actually license you out to sign your name for their money. You can't get money for your name, though.
You can't get money. Exactly. Right. That's insane to me. They can license you out to get money from you, but you can't receive anything from that. Yep. That's the biggest, and that is where the slavery hyperbole does not, does give credit and does make sense, is because they legally are making money from you while they're paying you nothing.
Exactly. And like I said, and you have no rights, you have nothing. And now I know that, and this is where I get upset, is when I talk to people who are not diehard sports fans, because I think most diehard sports fans hate the NCAA.
Yes.
But I think that the fringe fans and below will say things, well, they get a free education. No, they don't. They get a forced education, because not only do you have to play for them and make money for them while they're whipping you, you then have to go to class and you have to get good grades or we're not going to let you get on the field.
Yeah, exactly. They also stipulate that. And I also hated the whole Reggie Bush punishment and all of that. I hate like the stripping of the Heisman after the fact. Like, that bugged the shit out of me. I hated that punishment. And then stripping USC of their national title too. It's like, come on, get the fuck out of here. Like nobody.
Well, I understand. I understand that, like, he took something like $250,000 or something like that, or his family did, his parents did, something like that, to move closer to the stadium or something to that effect. And they know the rules. He knows the rules. So I'm not as big on that, because it's not like you can't have schools giving money to players, because then the schools with all the money will get all the best players while the lower schools get nothing. So
that happens anyway.
It does, but it's not like if you just said, hey, open the floodgates, everyone can do whatever they want. Like, all the big universities would just steal everybody. Right now, they only have so many scholarships. And, if you're like, hey, well, Alabama, I can start right away, but at Ohio State, I got to sit because they have a starter at that position already. That's the deciding factor. Not one of these schools can give me $100,000, one of them can't.
Yeah, but Ohio State and Alabama can both give you $100,000.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
I don't know. I think they should not necessarily let the floodgates open, but I do feel like players should get paid. And truthfully, it's going to hurt little schools, because you're not going to be able to pay the players on little schools as the same you're going to pay the players on big schools, in my opinion, or at least you shouldn't. A Clemson quarterback named Trevor Lawrence should make more money in NCAA than the Appalachian State quarterback. Like, he just should, plain and simple. Now, I understand the logistics of all of that and getting all of that handled and things like that. Doesn't seem like it could ever happen, because it changes consistently, and maybe these kids just need to sign contracts, I think. And I think like contracts should be set. Like, you can make $100,000 a year max. You know what I mean? Or $50,000 a year max, whatever they set the limit to. And then there's a 75, a 50, and a 25 or something like that. And like, there's 4 runs. and your player has to get paid one of those or some. And if your star is a quarterback, and then if he doesn't want to get that paid and sign that, he can essentially transfer and leave and go get paid at $100,000 somewhere else. But you only have a certain amount of $100,000 you can give. I think that might be like a cool little way to make that happen.
See, I had tried to come up with some sort of formula like that a while back and just kind of come up with an idea of, like, in basketball, the top 5 players get whatever for the year. And then the following year you can reassess your top 5 players and rearrange the money. But it's just too complicated. Like you said, the logistics are just, we're talking thousands and thousands of pages of
players. I mean, the amount of players it's insane to think about. So it's like, and especially because roster sizes are so big in the NCAA, that, like, are you really paying the third string long snapper 25 G's a year? You know what I mean? Like,
right. It's tricky. And so that's why what I came up with, and this is, I think, the easiest solution. 1, stop making them go to class. Stop it. They can go to class if they want, but they don't have to. Secondly, give them a check for the cost of tuition, room, and board. Let them do what they want with it. If they want to go to class, excellent. Then it's a free degree because they're choosing to go get that degree. If they decide, I don't want to spend this money on class or room and board because I'll get an apartment off campus or whatever, and then I'll just use this money for pot and video games and whatever, fine, that's their money. I mean, they can do whatever they want with it. But that way, every player gets the same amount, which is, in the case of, let's say, Rutgers, because that's the example I use, the tuition for an out-of-state person. We'll assume all the players are out of state. I'm sure some are in state. Let's just say they're all out of state. Out of state tuition at Rutgers is about $53,000 per year. So give each player
per semester or per year?
Per year. So give each, not just each player, like I'm talking football, basketball, give each student athlete at your university $53,000 and let them decide if they want to be student athletes or just athletes.
So, but then they wouldn't attend class?
They don't have to if they don't want to. They can if they want to. And if they do attend, their grades have nothing to do with whether or not they play. That's their money. If they want to waste their money on an F, go for it.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Are you going to be a slave master? Are you going to drive these kids into class?
No, but I mean, I feel like, so if you are representing a school and playing, why do you not have to attend school?
You have to play on the football team or the basketball team or whatever.
Okay, so if you're playing on the team, you're essentially an employee.
Exactly. Which is all they would be if you paid them. I mean, I'm just telling you where the money's going to come from.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to understand your concept. I think obviously people would have a problem with athletes not being students, I think. Because name an 18-year-old kid that's going to choose to go to school. So with $50,000 in his pocket. So I think that may be where the problem lies. But again, I mean, I think like Trevor Lawrence would go to school for $53,000. So. Well,
yeah, you're gonna have kids that come from rich areas. Like the Zach Wilson, right? His dad owns like JetBlue or something. Yeah. I mean, he's got no need for money, so he would probably just take the $53,000. He could do whatever he wants with it. His parents can pay for his education if he wants to go back. He's not worried about the classes. I don't. The way I look at it is that's the easiest way to give these kids money is just to say, here's the money. Do what you want with it. If you want to go to class with it, you can go to class with it. You can get a degree. Then you've got a free degree. And you can have people talk to these kids too, like every year. At the start of every season, every team has to get into like this big room. You have counselors who say, listen, here's the deal. You don't have to use this money that we're about to give you for your school, but you are going to be able to get a free education with this if you do use it for school. And this money is on top of their stipend too, because these kids get stipends.
Yes.
So they're getting their full tuition and their stipends. So they say, listen, if you choose to use it for classes, then you just get your stipend, but you're also going to get a degree and a stipend. This guy over here, he's only coming here for 1 year, so he's going to take the $50K. Are you going to only be here for 1 year? Mr. rode the bench last year for 8 minutes a game. Are you going to be here for this year and that's it? Or are you going to be here for all 4? If you're going to be here for all 4, get your degree, man.
That's true. I mean, I don't know. The whole non-school thing throws me off, but I think it does sound like it works. So I don't know that one may work. I actually like my idea too, though. So because then I think it allows more of like an NFL feel where there'll be like a free agency almost.
I think it's just more complicated.
Yeah, I think it could be. But again, it's definitely more complicated, but I think it allows for more, like, I think parity, and also allows, like, Like, again, you'll never convince me that Trevor Lawrence should not make more than the captain of the swim team. Well, like, I know they're both student athletes and they're both going to get 53 G's, but Trevor Lawrence produces billions of dollars when this swimmer does not.
So my question for you is this, though, which is, you say it creates parity. I think my way creates a little bit more parity in the sense that, okay, so I'm the valedictorian at my high school and I'm the star quarterback, right? Now I can go to Alabama to be the quarterback there for $53,000, or I can go to Harvard for $125,000 a year.
Why would it be $125,000?
Because that's how much it costs for tuition at Harvard.
Oh.
You're getting paid your tuition.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but then you're losing out on all the extra money you'd make in the NFL draft.
Not necessarily, because then schools like Harvard and Yale become kind of powerhouses in a way.
See, but Harvard and Yale wouldn't, because they're not going to let anybody that doesn't have a GPA or doesn't go to class.
There are a lot of 5-star recruits who are valedictorians and salutatorians.
I would beg to guess that that's maybe 10% of the player pool, if that.
Okay, and the player pool, so let's call it 5%. So the player pool is what, 2,000 players? So 5% is 100 guys. 100 guys split up in the Ivy League. I mean,
yeah, but they're not the valedictorians and salutatorians are not the best athletes. I'm telling you, they're just not. Like, they're not, and not to be like that guy, but most of these kids that are really incredibly good are not going to school and not winning the valedictorian. They're just not. And I think
what an incentive to do so.
But is it?
Yeah.
Because then again, those schools, I'm telling you, a Harvard and a Yale will force you to go to school. They will not relinquish their requirements of you have to go to school. So you're just getting their tuition, and then you're going to be forced to pay it to go to school. Because a Harvard and a Yale are not going to relinquish their I don't even know their stigma of being a elitist.
Yeah, let's call it morality. Their
morality of saying, "Hey, look, we're a institution first," and I think that's where it differs.
And here's a fact, and this is a fact of life, and it doesn't matter whether you're Harvard, and it doesn't matter whether you're Caltech Fullerton. Okay, what is more valuable, morality or money in the United States?
In the United States, it's money.
And Harvard is in the United States. And so I think if you can sell Harvard on Alabama kind of money for their athletics program, they have kids that are going there on full scholarship to be scientists, kids that are going to be doctors and lawyers. What do they care if 53 kids in their 45,000 student population is just there to play sports?
Yeah, but it's not. Again, it trickled down to every sport at this point.
Yeah. But
that's not just 53 kids. Then that's okay. 60 kids. That's 80 kids on the football team. That's 20 kids on both basketball teams. That's both soccer teams. That's a lot of kids. So they're just supposed to give away all of. And for one, Harvard and Yale are two of the hardest schools to get into to begin with. The scholarships that they limit. So they're going to now give away more scholarships because of this tuition money, and not give as many to doctors and lawyers and things?
You can give the same number.
No, you can't, because they're not giving as many full scholarships to kids in athletics. They give more to people in science programs.
Are still under the impression that these kids' scholarships come out of the tuition money. It comes out of the athletics department.
Okay, so then the Harvard athletic department doesn't make jack shit. Not
right away. It's a long con, right? I mean, Alabama's does. So if Harvard becomes competitive with Alabama, then
I don't know. I think you're off on this one.
I don't think so. I think $100,000 is more enticing than $50,000, especially to a stupid 18-year-old who doesn't care.
I don't think, but he does care, because he would have to care 4 years before that, because he'd have to be a valedictorian and have the 1,600 on his SATs just to even get into Harvard.
There's no rule that can go into effect that will be immediately impactful. It's going to take time to steamroll out, but once it does, I give it 10 years. After 10 years, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Penn, those schools become football, basketball, baseball, maybe not even football. Maybe Penn says, listen, we want to invest our money in the basketball team.
I want you to this week. I want you to next week's show to find me the last 5-star recruit that was a valedictorian.
Okay.
I bet you it will be harder than you think.
I don't think it will be, because I know, like, in my high school, the best basketball player that we ever had that had a 14-year NBA career and won multiple championships in the NBA was our salutatorian.
Cool.
I know that Tim Duncan was the valedictorian.
Cool.
Right?
I know that not a single NFL football player I can name was a valedictorian.
Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Okay, sweet. He wasn't a 5-star recruit at all.
No, he played at Harvard for free.
I'm just saying, like, these, like, and again, not to be that guy, but, like, you know, these kids are most of the time from inner cities and things like that. Like, the best athletes and things like that just are. So now I understand there's exceptions. There's guys like I'm sure Trevor Lawrence won a valedictorian. Truthfully, I'm sure he probably fucking did. He just seems like that guy, like he does. But I mean, like, beyond that, like find me the last 5-star cornerback or the last 5-star wide receiver that won a valedictorian. I think that would be extremely hard. That's essentially all I'm saying. I don't think the player pool would be big enough for a team like Harvard to ever compete.
Well, and before we let you go, because we are towards the end of the show, I did want to throw a few more numbers out there that we didn't get to. Just for anybody who's still on the fence, who doesn't think that the NCAA and the NCAA programs are villains, okay? People will be like, well, if you give all these scholarships away in checks or whatever, like, the schools can't afford it, especially because you figure a lot of these kids aren't on full scholarship. A lot of them are on partial scholarships or no scholarships. I mean, your swim team, like you said, the swim team might not have any scholarship players.
Yeah, they probably have 2.
But I'm saying give every single player that's a student athlete there money. And you're trying to think, well, where's the school going to come up with that money? I'm going to give you some examples here. Ohio State, their athletics department makes $228 million per year. And they have 1,038 student athletes at the university. That means that each athlete at their university generates $219,000 a year for Ohio State. How much is their tuition? $51,000 a year. So they generate 4 times the tuition every year. They can afford to pay every student athlete. And that's not even taking the NCAA and their $1 billion and nothing they give out. I'm just talking about Ohio State. Now let's take a look at Ohio State's tuition, right? Because let's say it did come out of the tuition budget. Ohio State makes $2.5 billion a year in tuition alone. They also have a $5 billion endowment from their people who give them money. They also have state funds of $500 million that the state gives them because they're a state-run school. So Ohio State is not hurting for the $35 million in scholarships that they would be giving out.
My argument to that would be, of the $250 million that the athletic department makes, how much of that is from just football and basketball?
Yeah, it's not evenly divided, but I'm saying that to make it fair, every athlete gets the same amount.
Is that fair, though?
Yeah, if you're going to give them a scholarship anyways.
But is it fair then to the point that this guy is busting his ass and making the school so much more money while this person then benefits by not making the school?
Because it's already doing that. It's already doing that. The top golfer at Ohio State, who nobody knows his name, he's getting a full $50,000 scholarship. So is their quarterback, Justin Fields. So why not just give them the cash? Now you want to give him less cash because he plays golf?
Yeah. And I want to give the more to Justin Fields because he plays the more important sport.
I say make it across the board. They get their scholarship money. It's nice and easy. It's clean.
Well, it's easy, but it's not clean. Like, you think it's clean, but it's not. Like, you're never going to tell the star quarterback of a university that he should be getting paid as much as the 4th string long snapper.
But he already is. That's why it's clean.
Yeah, he already is, but he already feels like he's underpaid.
Okay, well, now you're going to get cash, so it's going to kind of ease that wound for a little bit.
But it's not easing the wound because he's still going to look at that other guy getting the same amount of money doing no work. Like, I'm telling you that.
How did you say the number one golfer at Ohio State's doing no work? I didn't say the
number one golfer. I said the 4th string long snapper is going to get the same amount of money as the star quarterback on the team, and that's never going to work. That's never going to work.
But athletes need to understand that the 4th string long snapper at Ohio State would be the starting guard at Cal State.
No, I just mean more of, like, again, it's having now Justin Fields buy into the fact that he should be getting paid the same amount as me, essentially, the towel boy. You know,
the
like
Cowboys not on the team, but
no, I know, but you know what I mean. Like, I think that's where a problem would arise too. I get it; it sounds clean and easy, but I think it takes a little more than that.
Well, that's what I got. Hopefully we convinced you if you were against the whole idea, but these players should be getting paid somehow, some way, something. And the NCAA needs to keep their stupid $1 billion in, $0 out nose out of all the college sports.
You heard him. He said it. What's up?
That said, if I was all these college institutions, I'd look at the NCAA, and what would I say to them, Kenny?